The observation deck of the Wandering Star hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-maintained spacecraft. Leora Haynes sat cross-legged near the viewport, her worn boots tucked beneath her, unwrapping what remained of her emergency rations. 3 protein bars, 2 nutrient gel packs, and a single, precious chocolate bar she'd been saving for over 4 months. The chocolate had survived 2 asteroid field navigations, a solar flare, and her own desperate hunger during the fuel shortage 3 weeks prior. She broke off a small square and let it melt on her tongue, savoring the bittersweet taste of earth cocoa mixed with synthesized vanilla. Outside the viewport, the violet nebula stretched across the darkness like spilled paint. Beautiful and indifferent, a sound, soft, curious, made her turn. The Kethri cub stood in the doorway, no taller than Leora's knee, covered in silver-gray fur that caught the nebula's light, its large, reflective eyes fixed on the chocolate bar with an intensity that transcended language barriers. This was Meki, she'd learned, youngest of the Kethri delegation traveling aboard the Wandering Star to the neutral station at Kepler's Gate. The adult Kethri kept their distance from humans. Their species had only joined the Galactic Assembly 15 standard years ago, and their first contact with humanity had been complicated. A territorial dispute over a mining moon, resolved peacefully but not warmly. The Kethri remembered. They always remembered. But Meki was young, born after the tensions, and curiosity burned brighter than inherited caution. "Hey there, little one," Leora said softly, keeping her movements slow. She'd worked with enough xenobiologists to know that most species read sudden movements as threats. Meki chittered, a sound like wind chimes in a breeze, and took 3 careful steps forward. Its head tilted, whiskers twitching as it scented the air. The chocolate's aroma, even the synthetic version, was apparently universal in its appeal. Leora glanced at her rations. By human standards, she had barely enough to reach Kepler's Gate. The ship's recyclers were functioning, but she'd given up her extended food allocation when the cargo hold breach had contaminated half the crew's supplies. Captain's orders. Crew eats first. Passengers make do. She was a passenger, technically. An independent courier, who'd hitched a ride after her own ship, had been scrapped for parts on Threshold Station. The cub crept closer, its small paws silent on the metal deck. It sat back on its haunches, mimicking her cross-legged position with an earnestness that squeezed something in Leora's chest. "You want some?" she asked, knowing it couldn't understand English, knowing she shouldn't share what little she had, knowing she was going to do it anyway, because that's what humans did. It was their greatest strength and their most profound weakness they shared. Even when it hurt. Even when it made no logical sense. From the first fires shared with strangers in ancient caves to the first colony ships that carried seeds to dead worlds, humans had always been foolish enough to believe that sharing made them richer, not poorer. Leora broke off a single square of chocolate, barely a bite, and held it out on her palm. Meki's eyes widened until they seemed to take up half its small face. It looked at the chocolate, then at Leora, then back at the chocolate. Slowly, reverently, it reached out with tiny, 3-fingered paws and took the offering. The cub placed the chocolate in its mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Meki's entire body seemed to shimmer with delight. Its fur stood on end. Its tail, which Leora hadn't even noticed, unfurled like a silver banner. And it made a sound unlike any she'd heard before. Pure, crystalline joy. Before Leora could react, Meki spun and bolted from the observation deck, chittering at maximum volume. "Wait," Leora started, but the cub was already gone. She barely had time to wrap up her remaining rations before the thunder began. Not literal thunder, the sound of dozens of Kethri moving through the ship's corridors at speed. Within minutes, the observation deck's doorway filled with silver-gray forms. Cubs, mostly, but also adults, their eyes gleaming in the low light. Meki stood at the front, gesticulating wildly with its paws, chittering and squeaking in what was clearly an epic retelling of the chocolate encounter. One of the adult Kethri, wearing the blue sash that marked it as a clan elder, stepped forward. It looked at Leora with those vast, reflective eyes, then at the empty wrapper in her hand, then back at her face. The elder made a sound, deep and resonant, that carried weight beyond mere communication. The other Kethri fell silent. Human Leora Haynes, the elder said, its translator device rendering the words in flat, mechanical English. Meki speaks of a feast you have shared. Leora blinked. It was just one small piece of, he says you gave from your own need, the elder continued. That your stores are limited. That you shared anyway. The Kethri's whiskers trembled. Among my people, this is the highest honor. To share from scarcity is to declare another as clan. I didn't know. Leora started, but her voice caught. Around the elder, the other Kethri were pressing forward, each carrying something. Dried fruits from their homeworld, protein clusters that glowed faintly blue, water pouches stamped with Kethri symbols, enough food to see her comfortably to Kepler's gate and beyond. Meki squeezed through the crowd and placed a small, wrapped package in Leora's hands. Inside was a silver token, worked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Clan marker, the elder explained. You are kin now. Any Kethri ship, any Kethri station, you will not hunger, you will not be alone. The elder paused. And if Kethri could smile, Leora thought this one might be. The cub declared it a feast. The clan has answered. Leora looked down at the token, then at the mountain of food piling up around her, then at Meki, who was practically vibrating with pride. She thought about the single square of chocolate that had seemed so insignificant, about how humans always shared, especially when they had little to give. Maybe it wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was the thing that would carry humanity to the stars and beyond. One small bite at a time. Thank you, she whispered, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Meki chittered happily and climbed into her lap, curling up like it belonged there. Around them, the Kethri clan began to settle in, transforming the observation deck into something warm and alive. Outside, the violet nebula continued its eternal dance, but inside, something new had been born. A feast, a family, a future built on the simple, radical act of sharing, the human way.